Wow, you are very cheerful today.
I am, because we're gonna start this video with a book that is easily yes.
But before we get to that, again, all videos this
That
month
didn't
will
even
have
make
a
sense.
bunch of useful links down below
That is correct.
you can check out to educate yourself, to learn more about everything that's going on, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement.
And it's more
with the
educating
things in
ourselves
the
too. We
Philippines.
just want to share some useful stuff that we
Yes.
found awesomely useful.
So, as is tradition, we've done this for 2, I think.
Yeah, it's been a couple
running.
years now, yeah.
Yeah, it's the mid-year book Freakout tag.
That's right.
Which is a fun chance for us to sort of look back
It's
at
a
the
great-
first half of the year.
It's a great look back.
Right? And
kind
to
of
see
post.
like sort of what we've been reading or not reading, as the case may be. So we're just gonna dive right into it. The first question, well, before we dive right into it, I'm gonna say this, and I'm pretty sure I've said this in the last 2 videos. I am a dirty, rotten cheat. And I tried. I really tried to just do one answer for each question, and I couldn't do it, so you're just gonna have to suffer. Oh well, at least you'll see more good books, or bad books, as the case may be. Anyway, let's kick things off with the first question, which is, what is the best book you've read so far this year?
And
I could
to
not pick one.
Nobody's surprise.
So my favorite adult contemporary thing that I've read so far this
Genres.
year is Beach Read by Emily Henry. So Beach Read is the story of a romance writer who has kind of lost her inspiration for writing romance after she finds out that her father had been cheating on her mother. She really needs to turn in a new book, so she has to clean out this beach house that the dad used with the mistress. So to kill 2 birds with one stone, she has to go to the beach house and try to write while she's there. It turns out that her next door neighbor also happens to be her college rival. He's a literary fiction writer. And so they strike up this bargain where they're gonna switch genres for the summer and try to help each other write in that genre to, you know, sort of jumpstart their creativity and to see which one of them can accomplish this first. I love this. It was a great combination of like a nice romance, but also with a lot of like bite to the story and the character arcs, and I really, really liked it. It was one of my more recent reads, and I truly enjoyed it. For YA contemporary, we have Tweet Cute by Emma Lord, which is just the most adorable story ever. It's about Pepper and Jack, and they both are involved with family businesses that center on food. And they inadvertently find themselves involved in this Twitter feud over a grilled cheese recipe. Aside from that, they also are classmates in school, and they're both on the swim teams. And they're also chatting under hidden identities on this app that's popular in their school.
So you've got mail.
Again, it's another thing where like it was a really cute romance, but it was also a story with a lot of bite to the character arcs and like what was going on in their lives, and I really, really appreciated that. Plus, it's set in New York City, which is always a major bonus, and it has a lot of food in it, which I love. Now for adult fantasy, we all knew I was going to mention House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. I really enjoyed this book. It is a brand new world from Sarah. I really like it because it's urban fantasy. That said, I will say that I am not as well read in urban fantasy for adults. Like, I don't read a lot of it, and I'm relatively new and getting into that now. So for me, like, a lot of this was definitely new. It felt fresh. It still had Sarah's signature writing. I really loved the characters as usual. I really loved her world, and I'm so excited because it was such a solid start to the series, but I can see it blossoming into something even more exciting with every succeeding book. House of Earth and Blood is basically about Bryce Quinlan, and I can't really tell you because it's kind of a spoiler for like the first 100 pages, but there is a big traumatic event in her life that sort of sets the tone for what she's like a year after that event has passed. And the majority of the book explores that trauma, but also explores her journey to find closure about it.
That's great.
I've been trying to change up how I talk about this book just so that it's not spoilery for other people who haven't read it yet, but I really, really enjoyed it, and I think a lot of people will too. Last but not least is young adult fantasy that Mackie and I are both going to talk about, because why wouldn't we?
What was the best book you read? They asked, to no one's surprise.
Chain of Gold, which is in this beautiful slipcase. I'm pretty sure it was the LitJoy Crate exclusive edition. But Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare is the first book in her Last Hours series. And this follows a little bit after the Infernal Devices. It basically features the next generation after Will, Tessa, and Jem.
Right.
And the first book is basically everyone comes to town during a time of peace, only to discover that there is actually evil afoot that is going to set things off yet again for our Shadowhunter clans. It's actually much more character driven than a lot of the other Shadowhunter novels, because a lot of the conflict is due to the different things that the characters are going through.
Yep. While at the same time having Cassandra Clare's now trademark Big Bad Brewing, which is always a great thing.
I really enjoyed it, and I think a lot of that has to do with me loving most of the members of the cast equally. Like,
Even before we read these things, even before we read this book, there was so much hype and short stories about the cast that when it dropped, we were just like, we knew this was gonna kill us.
Yeah, it was so good. The entire book itself is, it's also the setting, I think, that helps, because we both really love the stories when they're set in London and around the London Institute, and to give us a whole generation of characters that we adore and that setting, perfection. I am very excited. They just dropped the cover for the second book as well, and also the synopsis, and I'm here for it because it has the best setup. Like, it has the setup that I like in my Shadowhunter books, which is like there's a murder mystery.
If you've read it and you enjoy us ranting, there is a podcast episode on Fandom Buzz. It's
all about Chain of Gold.
All about Chain of Gold.
It was a very long episode.
It's super like spoilery, right? So don't
listen to it if you haven't read it. But if you have
and you like hearing us rant, that's what you go for. It's not even Chain of Gold, it's the rant about it. So to nobody's surprise, this was the best book so far. I feel, and this is just for me because you have a larger set of things to read, I feel like this is gonna be it for me as far as written books. I don't know that anything coming this year for me is gonna top,
we'll find out,
Chain of Gold. A special mention for graphic novels, I want to say my best graphic novel of the entire year so far would be the entire Dawn of X series.
I knew it. Gee, we did not see that coming. This is when the X-Men finally get their day in the sun. They are on the front foot now. They are still the oppressed species, but they're like, but we're gonna rule the world now, and they are. They're basically Beyonce. This is the X-Men. Who run the world? This is the X-Men leave Destiny's Child and become Beyonce. I don't even listen to Beyonce, but my mad respect for her is like so. Like, she's not my genre, but why not? She's queen for so many things. So there. This is when the X-Men leave Destiny's Child and then write Lemonade. Like that's what the level is. That's totally what the level is. Anyway. All right. Next question is the best sequel you've read so far this year. Would you like to go first? I would like to go first. It's not a sequel, but it is definitely a book after the first book, and still counts. I'm gonna go with Legacy. Legacy is book 8 of the Keeper of the Lost Cities. Interestingly enough, for the last year, and only because there's so many books, right? I mean, there's 8 books, so you're gonna talk about those for a while. I feel like we've just been talking about exactly. It's like Shadowhunters, but low key. You look at all the videos here. Very low key. Very low key. It's there. Sophie Foster, regular human girl, so she thought, gets pulled into a world where she realized she's an elf and part of a larger conspiracy that is changing the world. And now I feel like we've got that line down pat. You say it enough times, it goes here. But the reason why I think this is the best sequel is because everything from book 1 was leading up to this. I can't say why for me personally because it's a spoiler. For those of you, again, so far and thus far, congratulations to all the victors. I always say that when it comes to my ships, and whether they sail or not, congratulations to all of you. This book, same sentiment. Congratulations to all the victors. Make of it what you will. There's a lot of personal reasons that are spoilery why I think this is easily the best book so far, and a reward after flashback, which was something so hard to this book 7. I feel better now. I feel so good. I'm so excited, life. But it'll take me a while to get there. Yeah, I'm not happy. There's about everything, but I feel so good about this book, and we'll leave it at that. Holler at me if you know what I'm talking about, but don't spoil because she hasn't read it yet. This one is technically sort of a companion to a series. I'm gonna count it here anyway. The book is Rebel by Marie Lu. This takes place years after the Legend series, and it centers around the brothers, so Daniel and Eden. And they're now living in a new place. They have new circumstances, but Eden finds himself caught up in some shady business. He and Day don't always see eye to eye either. And so a lot of this book explores the conflict between the brothers and the things that Eden in particular is going through now that he's become a little older and has, progressed from where he was at the end of the other series. And this book was so good. Like, I really enjoyed the Legend trilogy a lot, but this book was so good. And I think it's partially because I love that it was about the brothers, because I have a soft spot for sibling stories, and this one definitely had that at the center of it. It was also nice to see the world as it was after everything that happened in the Legend series, like what had changed, what hadn't changed, like where certain people were in the world. It was really good. Like, I just really enjoyed it. It was so satisfying, including that ending. Gemina by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, the second book in the Illuminae Files series. That's a great sequel. This book in particular sort of takes place simultaneously with book 1.
Yeah.
It's in a different location. It's on the Heimdall
Kinda like-
space station, and it is about the things that the people at Heimdall go through. And oh my god, okay, when I started this, I really didn't think I was gonna love it as much as I did. And I was really skeptical, but Mackie was like, no. The main character in this one is Hannah Donnelly, and she is Mackie's favorite so far of all of them.
So far.
And I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. And then cut to the end of this book where I'm like, oh my gosh, she's the best person ever. It was great. I really love the setup for this particular installment. I'm not gonna tell you exactly what happens, but the setup for it works really well for me. And if you know what my reading tastes are like, they'll probably figure out why. So good. Oh my gosh, it was so great. I loved it. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is the series finale, and that is Night of the Dragon by Julie Kagawa. So this is the end of the Shadow of the Fox series, and like any good series that sort of mirrors an anime, it has like the most epic, like everyone is here and we're gonna do all we can to save the world. It was so good. Mackie was there when I was reading this.
Oh yeah, I was there first.
This is a slight spoiler for a future question, but I had a very big emotional response to the ending of this book. So good, so good. Definitely recommend checking out the series if you haven't already. The next question is a new release you haven't read yet but want to.
For those of you who have watched our July TBR, you'll know that there has been an Artemis Fowl renaissance for me personally, and I've been sitting on the Fowl Twins for a while now because I've been sitting on a lot of books for a while now, kind of like how Smogs. It's more like a hoard, more like a book hoard, and I'm Smog just sitting there.
Nothing so dignified as a throne.
Nothing so, just like I am the darkness and I hate dwarves or something like that. Where he's just like sitting on all the gold and he's like, this is mine now. And I now want to read all things Artemis Fowl. I don't even want to be ambitious anymore and reread the entire Fowl series first.
I bet you don't have to.
Yeah,
it seems like
because it feels like it's a spin-off or it's happening. I don't know what happens afterwards, but this is cool. It's signed by Owen Hofer. That was fun. It was great to meet him. I was able to tell him that because of him, it made me like fairies.
Actually, the
just
fairies in
for
that
this
book
book
are so great.
And he's like, well, that's good. I'll take that compliment. I was like, okay. So there. It's just cool meeting your childhood authors because I was a teenager when I read the Artemis Fowl.
My Calamity Jane, which is by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. This is the third book that the Lady Janies have written together. It centers around My Calamity Jane, obviously, but it also features the characters Annie Oakley and Frank Butler, and I'm not as familiar with that part of history, but I am curious to see how the Lady Janies are going to inject some sort of magical element into the story, as they always do. I'm also expecting it to be pretty funny because that is also a very common theme in their books, so can't wait to read that. I also have a very pretty book, The Sound of Stars by Alicia Dow.
Oh.
This is actually science fiction. There's sort of a war raging between aliens and humans. The aliens have basically taken over the earth, and it is forbidden to have any sort of like art, music, books, stuff like that. But there's this girl who actually has a library of that, and then one day she gets caught with it. The alien who sort of catches her should be, you know, putting her in her place, but he finds himself drawn to the stuff in her library, and so they have to sort of team up together to save the world, and that sounds pretty darn awesome. And the last book I'm going to mention is a middle grade, actually, The Girl and the Witch's Garden, which sounds an awful lot like it was inspired by The Secret Garden, which I'm not mad about. I just really love this cover too because it just gives me very Miyazaki vibes, which I'm not mad about, so very excited about this. It's by Aaron
Very
Berman.
cool.
Next question, the most anticipated release for the second half of the year.
The Animorphs graphic novel. The Animorphs graphic novel. The Animorphs graphic novel. I can't wait.
Yeah, Mackie is a huge Animorphs fan.
The Animorphs defined my entire childhood, and it's probably one of the reasons writing science fiction is easier for me than writing fantasy, because I read more, come to think of it, science fiction.
Yeah, because you read a lot of Star Wars too.
Yeah, and mainstream science fiction. I don't mean like the really esoteric kind of deep in space and the stars have, no, like Animorphs and like Star Wars and the Legends universe. I followed Animorphs to death, like literally from books 1 to 50 and all of the Megamorphs and all of the Alternamorphs. Even the Alternamorphs and all of the Chronicles. So for them to like revive the series, I even watched the series, the TV series, the old. And by the way, that had a killer opening theme, mind you. I still sing it, and yes, it's all in your hands. So for them to put it in graphic novel format, I'm just like, please give me everything, please, again, like. And so I pre-ordered it. The only thing stopping me from collecting all of the physical copies again is shelf space. That's it. We gotta pack light in this economy.
Says well, all the books are behind us.
And I would rather defer to give Alexa all the shelf space she needs.
Oh,
so
isn't that nice?
yeah, it is.
Okay, I have a couple, which is unsurprising. One that I've already read is Where Dreams Descend by Janella Angeles. That book is basically inspired by Phantom of the Opera and Moulin Rouge. It is about a female magician named Kalia, and she participates in a magician's competition.
Ooh.
So that's the bare bones of the story, but there is a whole heck of a lot more, and it's out in August, and I hope you guys will pick it up. Two that I have not read are Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco, which is about a witch and a demon or a devil, which that's really all I needed to know about it. And of course, I could not fail to mention The Lost Book of the Wife by Cassandra Clare, because I need more Magnus and Alec in my life.
All right, yeah, that makes complete sense.
There was going to be no flipping way that I was not going to mention that book, because it is the second book about my two favorite characters in the Shadowhunters universe, and it's going to be set in Shanghai, and I'm pretty sure it's going to bring some familiar faces.
Yeah. And it's not that I'm not looking forward to the Lost Book of the Wife series at all. No, I am. It's just, come on, it's just, for me, the Animorphs had to rank a little higher.
That's okay. I understand.
Right. I mean, it's a bunch of kids who get alien tech and they can transform into animals, and they have to now fight for the fate of the Earth. Yes. And they do. It was the most explosive ending. Anyway, so that's just me.
Alright, so the next question is biggest disappointment.
Bloodshot. Now, here's the thing. You see a pretty trailer on like, you know, like on our Apple TV, and it's like, Vin Diesel is Bloodshot. I'm like, hey, that's kind of a cool science fiction concept. And then, out of nowhere, Kindle Unlimited is like, all of the Bloodshot graphic novels are out. I'm like, let's go! I'm 5 graphic novels in, or 4. I haven't checked on my Goodreads, and I'm just like, huh, it's not hitting all of the notes that I was hoping it would. Because it's a cool concept. Hyper nanites in a dude who gets to heal and do some really cool military stuff and be the ultimate like fighting warrior kind of thing. And his mind gets wiped every time, and he doesn't know who's right or who's wrong anymore. Great concept, but then it sort of meanders sort of in the middle towards, now I'm saving a bunch of kids, and then suddenly I'm defying a thing. So it becomes mission of the week with no real big arc. So it just kind of felt like it started becoming more of an action thing than there was any kind of compelling storyline. And I guess that works for other people, but it kind of doesn't work for, even John Wick had a clear, you could sympathize. Gotcha. Like a lot. Gotcha. And it made fun of itself. Without those elements, those personal touches, it just feels like, here's like wholesale violence and like a mission. And so that's why I was a little disappointed.
Well, mine is actually something I read fairly recently, and it's for the same reason. Like, conceptually it sounded so great, but then the execution was not something that worked for me. It's a book called 80 Days to Elsewhere by Casey Dyer. The concept of it is basically that this girl is given the chance to sort of audition for a job with a literary travel company. So she has to plot an entire trip inspired by Around the World in 80 Days.
Nice. Which
sounds really fun, and I love travel stories. I love that it's inspired by a book too. But the problem was, it felt like the author was trying to do too much in one story. So outside of the travel, there's also like this girl's internal problems, which is fine, but then she also is exposed to a lot of different situations that make her check her privilege, which is also not a bad thing per se, but there was so much, and it just didn't feel like they were given the, I don't know, page time attention. Like
the runway.
Yeah, like there was the whole Syrian refugee thing, there was the Indians' land being taken over in Canada, there was deportation mentioned at some point, so it was just a lot of stuff. Like, I don't necessarily think including the stuff is bad, it's just that it felt
have
like
to give them the time
it sort
to
of
develop
cheapens the inclusion of it in the story. So for me, that was very much a disappointment. Look, I only had one answer. Aren't you proud of me? The next question was the biggest surprise.
Alright, biggest surprise for me, well, the Buffy Angel reboot. Not that I did not like Angel better back in the series. I guess I liked them equally, but I was more partial to Buffy because it's sort of what you grew up with, and that was the thing. And so for the reboot to be such a shocking departure, like, it's not even the way that the I want to say semi-canonical, but not really canonical, companion graphic novels were to the series. Not even the actual season, like, you know, 8 onwards kind of deal, where it really was sort of Joss, like, held me with things. So this is a real reboot. We're gonna take everything differently. Willow was gay from the start, so there's no, you know, there was no growth, there was no journey there, which I thought, I mean, sure, like, I mean, that's a little bit more contemporary, right? It wouldn't make sense if we were gonna set it today. That Willow wouldn't have come out. Now that, you know, now that there's a larger sort of space for that kind of thing, right? I mean, so you don't even see that. It's just she's just, I've just liked girls for like ever. I have a girlfriend or some such. So a lot of things that you love from Buffy aren't there. But then you flip over to Angel, and a lot of things that you did love are kind of amped up, and I'm just like, that's kind of all right. It's not Angel. It's not the Angel investigation. It's not even Angel Investigations ever or at all. But there's so much in there that I'm like, wow, this is the kind of substance that made Angel great. And there's a lot of it in here. So I've yet to hear any Angel fans say, ugh, this is terrible, because I don't really reach out to anybody. But I haven't seen any really bad reviews either. So that was a huge surprise. And of course, Powers of X and House of X, which was sort of like the prelude to the whole new X-Men era thing. Because when I heard the synopsis of what is going on now, and they say, oh, this one person in X-Men history was actually a mutant the whole time, and her power was to keep being reborn after dying. And so she's lived through 80 bajillion multiverses.
That's right.
And this is the one multiverse where she's like, we're gonna be Beyonce now. Like, we're gonna leave Destiny's Child. And we're gonna be...
You really are never gonna let that compare.
It's a great comparison. The way, like, she run the world, they run the world. And they're gonna be haters. But there's enough of a hive to, like, nobody can touch us. So that's such a huge surprise. I did not expect that it would be this good so far. I've seen some weird comments about the future part of that, which I haven't read. But so far, pretty good.
Fair enough. Okay, I have a couple for this. The first is going to be the Sweet Trilogy by Wendy Higgins. So I read that one with Rachel and DJ for the paranormal book club that we do, and I was really surprised. I did not expect to be so enamored with how she did the lore for it, with the fallen angels and all of that.
Yeah.
I also did not expect for it to hold up very well story-wise. Like, it was super compelling and it was super interesting to read, and that doesn't always happen with the older YA paranormal stuff, so that was really good. And the next book that I want to mention, which I'm not holding for some reason, even though I have 2 copies of it already, is Les Miserables, which I read in the first half of the year, and I still consider that like my greatest achievement for 2020.
Well, the book's heavy.
Yeah, it is actually. Figuratively and literally. It was a surprise to me how once I got to a certain point, it became really readable, and I also should have known this going in, but it's very character driven and very setting driven. The reason it's so long is because there's so much to set the stage, and there's also so much to give you insight into the character's mind, so that was a surprise. The last book I'm going to mention, Illuminae by Amy Coffin and Jay Kristoff, because I really didn't think I was gonna love it as much as I did.
Oh yeah, totally.
I didn't want to read it in the first place, so I was like, oh, it sounds fine, like it wasn't gonna be that interesting to me, but like with the combined efforts of Mackie and my friend Hannah from So Obsessed With and my friend Kelly from Bella the Literati, I finally was like, you know what, I'm gonna read it. So I highly recommend how I did it, which was listening to the audio and following along in the physical. It just really enhanced the experience of this story for me, and I really think that otherwise I probably would not have enjoyed it as much as I did. Next question is favorite new author, a debut or someone that's new to you?
Okay, so Kindle Unlimited, super fun. One of the series on there that's so new to me, this author, is a series called Coffin House. It's a graphic novel series by Caitlin Kittredge, and I gotta say, Caitlin Kittredge is awesome in this particular piece, because she's able to capture that early 2000s, mid 2000s kind of paranormal kind of vibe, right? So we're talking, you know, Buffy and Supernatural. It's a series about the Coffin Witches, right? And Eve Coffin, who is supposed to be like this child of some wealthy socialites who have been, you know, kind of blue bloods in her particular New England kind of town, who comes from a long line of witches. Their relatives have been like the worst of the worst and the best of the best, depending on the day, and she ends up just getting sucked back into this magical sort of like world, and it captures that eerie, oh my god, we're tampering with power, with forces greater than ourselves, but there's a redemption arc, and she's not a saint, she's not a demon either, but she just wants to do the right thing now that she's an adult. And I loved it. I love every second of it. It was so good. I thought this should be picked up as a Netflix series, because I would watch this. For me, I have 2. I already mentioned their book, so it'll just be quick. Emma Lard, who wrote Tweet Cute, and Emily Henry, who wrote Beach Read. Next question is newest fictional crush. Cordelia Carstairs.
She's great though. Here's
a moment that I kind of crushed hard. She's having tea with somebody. Since she's new in town, the person that invites her to tea with, I will talk about the person in the next question. The person asks her, hey, so, you know, with all these strapping young lads, you know, these boys kind of around, you know, wouldn't you like to be, you know, like rescued, or like you'd be good for this? So she was kind of like doing the whole maker marm, school marm thing, where it's like, where do you fit in the society? And so many questions that led up to Cordelia going, well, I don't want to be any of that. I want to be a hero. And I'm like, yeah, you do that, girl. I'm like, that's kind of, and then she's a redhead, so I'm just like, it ticks a lot of boxes, I find. You see the little Cortana in the back. I dig that so hard, and I am crushing pretty. Now, am I happy with her life choices? Well, Shadow Hunter blood breeds true.
Mine is Jason from the Happy Ever After playlist, so I can't really tell you the plot of the story because it's connected to the Friend Zone, which came out by this author last year as well. Suffice to say that Jason is the hero of the story, and he is a musician, he's a family person, he's really, really nice. Like, he's just a good guy all around, and he's so utterly in love with the heroine that it's hard not to like him. So he is definitely top up there of the dudes I met this year. Next question is newest favorite character.
Anna Lightwood. She was the lady talking at Cordelia at this little set-up tea party.
Anna's great though.
Anna Lightwood is a revolutionary. She is gorgeous. She is androgynous. She's strong and yet vulnerable. She loves deeply and cares and looks out for her younger siblings. At least that's how I feel she treats like the
everyone, actually.
That she leads the charge low-key and has Matthew Fairchild, who is also another favorite character. And like we knew we loved Matthew Fairchild from like day one.
I mean, I loved all of these characters. Well, I would obviously consider the entire cast of Chain of Gold like a bonus to this question, but my pick is actually going to be Bryce from House of Earth and Blood, because I just loved her. She's so different from who I am as a person because she's so much more mouthy, and she's a little sassy, and she's a little bit more sure of herself. But I loved seeing her vulnerable side as well, and I think that's what drew me to her, particularly as a character. It was just like the things that she goes through in this book are things that I found relatable. Not in the literal sense, obviously, but like figuratively, the emotional journey that she goes through the entire book felt like something so familiar to me, and I think that's what endeared her to me even more.
The next question is a book that made you cry. There you go. That's
this
right.
is one of them. This is another one of them. I was really upset, and I walked into the room to show it to Mackie, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like,
"It's a lot of tears."
This too. Mackie watched me sob my way through this, so you know, lots of cry. I did lots of crying over books, guys.
So I'm gonna give some special mention to the DC Rebirth's Trinity, like that's his old series, the first graphic novel in that series, because obviously Trinity is about Bruce, Diana, and Clark. I say Bruce, Diana, and Clark because this is not a Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman story. Underneath all of that, though arguably Bruce is the mask and Batman is the real character, but underneath all of that, the humans and Kryptonians, whatever, the people, like, the people underneath the superhero mantles are, I find, what makes DC Comics writing so well. There's a scene there where, for whatever reason, Clark ends up seeing Jonathan Kent after a long time. And to have those conversations, that kind of broke me a little bit, or a lot, because I'm kind of a sucker for father-son, like real healthy father-son relationships. When you see something sort of portrayed really well, like to see Jonathan Kent Sr., right? Because we have John Kent, like baby John, Cinnamon Roll Kent, talk about how terrified he is of raising Clark, and be so threatened by a grown-up version of what looks like his son, to think that, are you going to take my son away from me? And he's like, no, sir, I'm not doing that. And to have him talk about how terrified he is of raising his son. And he asks Clark, do you have a boy? And he's like, yes, I do. He's like, well, you're going to be lucky because you understand everything that your son is going through, whilst I have no idea. I can't be in that world. And they have this moment, and I'm sobbing right now thinking about it. It's beautiful. And I'm like, this, first of all, I don't like how they got there, by the way, lore-wise. That's a totally different issue. But the fact that you were able to have that moment, write that moment, craft it well, to me is just great. Which leads me to the other thing that made me cry this year that I didn't intend to read because we read Tempest and Slaughter. That's a great book, by the way, that we have to mention, special mention for this entire thing. But I had to read Wild Magic by Tamara Pierce. I love that we got this thing from Book Off, because this was exactly the kind of copy that I got. Like, this was the renaissance of my second book renaissance in my life. And I read Wild Magic in a week, entire series, and now years later, it made me cry because Tortall feels like home to me. I was able to tell Tamara Pierce personally that I keep coming back to her books over and over again, and she said that's a hell of a compliment. It's true. I love the series so much, and there's never been a more compelling series that makes you feel like this is home, because Dane comes to Tortall. Alana grows up there, so she's like, yeah, this is my home. But for you to be in Dane's shoes and to find your home here in this new awesome place, tears all the way through. And now for the book that made you happy.
Easy, recent read, Love on Lexington Avenue. Very cute romance between a grumpy contractor and this not so newly widowed Upper East Sider, I want to say. It was just delightful. This is a really short book, and even if it was short, it just packed enough like joy into it that I was really smiling most of the way throughout. Another honorable mention for this would be Tweet Cute again, because that book was just a delight to read. And an upcoming release that I think everyone should read is The Roommate by Rosie Danan, because I cackled so much reading that book. It is about a girl who travels cross-country. She's supposed to be spending the summer like living in the same house as her best friend, only her best friend's band has this gig, and so she gets left behind in California with a roommate that her friend found, and it sort of explores their unlikely relationship, and I was here for it. It was just very hilarious.
Tempest and Slaughter, because it did make me really happy, which led me to a book that made me happier. Again, well magic.
So, good choice.
Next question is your favorite book to film adaptation that you saw this year?
Little Women.
First of all, let's give some props to Greta Gerwig and even the actress who played Amy March, who was universally hated. You know, the actress came in self-aware that not a lot of people liked Amy. Neither did I. I mean, I did not dislike her, but she was not my favorite. Yeah, but for her to play Amy so well,
yeah, she did.
and to rewrite that narrative, and for me to ship her with Laurie, that was the first time in history. And I love Little Women from like ever. From the first time my mother brought like the video of like the Winona Ryder version home, and I watched it like every so often, like over the years. Loved it. Read the books, kind of the musical with Sutton Foster. My God. And then, and some friends played, like, you know, played Little Women locally. They did the Little Women musical like home. So lots of love, but never any love for Amy.
Yeah.
Or Laurie for that matter. But you know, I shipped them so hard. So
it was so good. It was just so enjoyable. I think they did such a good job translating it with a new sort of feel to it. Because I mean, I grew up on the old movie, of course, which I also really have like a soft spot for. But this new movie also has earned a place in my heart.
Yeah. Special mention would have to be Altered Carbon. Season 2, I find, delves into some of the later books in the Takeshi Kovacs series, but it's just great. It's just, I can't even. It's so well done. It captures the grittiness of the book, I want to say, and it even gives it a little bit more oomph. So I'm not saying that it's better than the book. I'm saying it does a great thing of translating genres and making itself its own thing without diminishing the source material. And I think that's the best thing that you can go for these days.
I think so too.
So that's kind of cool. Now, 13th question. Favorite review you've written this year?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not a review I wrote. And I think Maki might have the same answer as I do.
Drum roll, please.
Were you going to say our Fandom Buzz episode, the bookish breakdown one? Okay, we've only ever done one. Chain of Gold.
We're gonna do another. We're gonna do another before. We're gonna end Fandom Buzz season 1 with
we're gonna do the Illuminate Files. There are a couple other things I can think of that we'd probably do it for, but I'm really proud of that inaugural episode because like we were weirdly coherent for two people who were like losing their minds over this book. Okay?
Weirdly coherent to us. Now you feel free to comment and say y'all just ranted like in circles, and we'll respect that.
That episode is like
probably not
so much fun. I'm so sorry. It was just great to dissect the book so much and to like just enjoy talking about
I created new segments for that show.
It was so great. So that was going to be your answer.
Yeah, so that was definitely going to be your answer. It's in the link below. If you've read Chain of Gold, feel free to go check that out. It's an hour and a half. I
still can't believe
so long.
But it's so fun.
But it was fun.
If you love Chain of Gold.
If you love Chain of Gold. If you love Chain of Gold and you like hearing us rant, that it's got to be those two things. Because if you're not like if this isn't your thing, then maybe not don't stay away from it. But if you find this amusing, then there's a lot of that. There's a lot of shipping going on because we hold no spoilers. But that's the beauty of Fandom Buzz is we will spoil the frag out of everything that we can get our hands on.
Every published thing.
Anything
that hasn't been published
that we've both like read. So there are rules. There is a line. We're not animals. We're not heathens. Anyway, most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received?
My new editions for the Card Captor Sack are collector's edition. So this is 3 and this is 4. 3 is my special favorite because of who happens to be on this cover. Shocker. But 4 is equally beautiful because look who's on the cover too. These are very beautiful editions and I love them.
How about I'll raise you one clamp series.
I like how it's both clamp things.
And I'll give you another clamp thing, and that is the 25th edition
so beautiful
Ray Earth first part. Part 1, books 1, 2, and 3. And an art book, which leads me to some of the beautiful books that I've And I want to say received. I'm going to start with my brother's little kind of book, art book here for the book that we put together called Cold Snap. I find that it's beautiful. My brother's art is great. See him, you know, put these characters into real life. To me, I just have to shout that out. I'm proud of his work. So this to me is like lovely.
All right.
Also, you know, I think the cover's pretty dope.
It is pretty dope.
What books do you need to read by the end of the year?
All of them. No, I'm kidding.
God.
I actually still have a bunch of books left on my 10 books that I wanted to read in 2020. I think I have historical fiction in The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. And then I also have The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden. Shattered Court by M.J. Scott. The Last Life of Prince Alistar by Alexander Bracken, who I love, by the way. Timely. The Rise of Kyoshi, which is by FCE. And Wonder Woman Warbringer by Leigh Bardugo, which I still have not read. I don't know how that happened.
It's so good though.
That's why. It's so
good.
weird.
By the way, Wonder Woman Warbringer has Leigh Bardugo's trademark. Like, you know the kind of strength that you associate with Leigh Bardugo's characters and her aesthetic as a human being? Like, the soul of Leigh Bardugo is so heavily stamped into this thing that it is both beautiful for Diana and it's so meta that it's Leigh. So it's basically if Leigh were Wonder Woman.
Love it.
That's how I'm reading
Love
it.
it, love
like
it.
if Leigh Bardugo as a human being were like grafted onto Diana with the mascara, and basically that's what that is. And I thought,
love it.
I need her to be Diana.
And
Anyway,
what's yours?
if I just read Obsidio this year, I'll be happy. It's just one book.
Please read
God.
Obsidio.
Just one.
I just need.
Just
I have notes, okay, for like the things that I need to mention.
This
to
is
Matthew
going
once
to be
he's
the
read.
next bookish breakdown. This entire series is gonna be
a lot of
broken
feelings.
down. Okay,
I have a lot of LOT feelings.
because Hannah Donnelly has to do her thing again.
I'm just waiting for him to read this. If you've read it, you probably know what I'm thinking of when I say like there are like choice moments that I really wanted to say something so badly.
Yeah, so I love the characters.
He hasn't met the
I haven't met the new
yet.
ones. I need to meet the new ones,
Yeah.
and we just gotta get here.
Yeah. So that finally brings us to the end of this extremely long mid-year book freakout tag. We hope you enjoyed hanging out with us, listening to us rant and rave a little bit about all the books that we wanted to mention. And again, we hope you guys are doing well. Feel free to leave your answers to any of these questions.
Yeah, holler at us. It's been a while,
or just
but
say hi.
Yeah,
We'll say hi back.
happy to say hello
Promise
back.
we'll try to be more communicative
Yeah,
now.
it's just been a
whirlwind.
It's been a crazy few months.
Anyway, as always, sending our love to all of you, and we hope you're well. Till next time, bye!
Bye.